Hi, this is Ed, and the picture behind me is from Palm Desert, California, and that is a real picture, unedited, undoctored. It actually happened after a brief rainstorm. It doesn't happen in the desert that often, but the sky, look at the color differentials. I'm looking west from the deck of our house, and
Nice.
that's just a beautiful, like miracle kind of photo. So, welcome to Global TV Talk Show. We have an international panel today, as well as some note takers. Hello, Otter. We'll let you in. Be careful what you say, folks. Okay. So, Annette, please introduce yourself to the world.
Yeah, thank you. It's so great to be here again. Yeah, my work really is about peace. And I have been working, not living, working in companies for many years and also with companies. And my experience is that we could use a more appreciative and peaceful attitude and culture in companies. And so I'm a speaker, coach, and author. And I've been doing this work for many, many years. And very often companies called me to adjust their teams because they said, oh, my team doesn't perform correctly or doesn't perform in a good way. And so they asked me to kind of fix it. And my experience really is that in teams, it's not about fixing them. It is about finding an attitude of working together to really have such an atmosphere that everybody loves to contribute, that everybody is committed, that everybody is productive. And it's very good at that you bring up the topic with the millennials because for them it will be difficult. In my generation, it was that people could be, I still call it motivated, even though there are people who say, oh, there's no real motivation. Oh, but I'll leave this one out. But we could be motivated with a big car, a big salary, maybe also the possibility to yeah, go on some expensive trips. And for the younger generation, it's really different. I see it from my own children. So my oldest son, he is 33. He lives in Norway, and he had the offer of a really big consultant firm. Not some small, but really a big player, one of the really big names. And he decided that he wanted to stay in Norway with his family, with his 3 month and 2 year old daughter, and to work in a smaller company because he really didn't want to have these working hours because those working hours were really from 9 in the morning to 11 in the evening. And my daughter, she's now 32. She and her husband, they are working with a global telecommunication company. And when their first son was born a little bit more than 1 year ago, they decided to work each 30 hours per week. And so that's what they now do. And my son-in-law, he is still at home taking yeah, some time off to spend it with their son. And this is something that would have been not I think people wouldn't have done it when my children were small. Yeah, it was considered to be like this, that the woman stays at home and the men work. Yeah, and so I'm really happy for all this change. And in my opinion, it's so important for employers to really show their, especially young employees, what they can contribute to the purpose of the whole company. But it is so important that the company knows what purpose it has, and the purpose is not to increase only sales. And at the other hand, if I really have a purpose, then the increase of sales is kind of what follows. And so if I really have this atmosphere of commitment, then people really love to work in this company. And what we say, they really love to go the extra mile. And this really contributes to increased sales because we as customers, we love to buy from those companies. And also to decrease the costs for example, the costs to substitute an employee who is leaving. If an employee leaves, it's about 30 to 100% of the cost of the annual salary. And what's also decreasing that those are the sick days. So the company can increase their profits only with other measurements that we used to do. And so now I experience several companies whose profits decrease, and they go back to, let's say, business as usual. And what I mean with business as usual is that they react in a more authoritarian way, like the way we had been doing, when I started working. There were also studies about all this topic. And Christian, I've seen that you've raised your hand, so I'll stop over here. I think, yes, I gave you an overlook about what I do. And you can always come back to me with further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Chris?
Annette. So with regards to taking leave, as you mentioned, or working part-time, so in the United States, working part-time in the white collar, office and so on environment isn't really a thing. But in California, in 2004, paid family leave was introduced, which is a program that is paid by contributions. So when you have a paycheck, you pay into social security. You also pay into disability insurance and unemployment insurance, and it's paid out of that. So in 2004, this was introduced. In 2005, I went on the first of my 2 paternity leaves because the lady that you see on your screen was born. And it was a 6 week, I had 6 weeks. Remember, it was a state given right to take this. And there was quite a lot of resistance from my company at the time that I would be daring to take this leave and basically figure out for myself what had to be done, which documents I had to file, talk to HR, and really insist on my right to take this leave to spend time and bond with my then very young daughter. And I was the first one in the office to do it because, again, it had just been introduced a year before and nobody knew about it. HR wasn't interested in telling anyone about it. And after all that, in 2009, for Natalie's sister, I did it again. And to me, this is an example of, I'm Gen Z, Natalie's I'm Gen X, Natalie's Gen Z. It's an example of figuring out what there is, what you can do. I know that in Norway and in Europe in general, they're much more advanced, except the Swiss, they're not. They're still working on that with paternity leave, maternity leave. But they're much more advanced. They take that into consideration, what Annette said, what she described. And here, there are some things you can do. And fortunate to live in the state of California where this is a thing that is a right given to you by the state and that you pay for.
Ken?
Yeah, obviously very, very interesting to hear the different thoughts on this. What I see going on, big picture, is that employers are getting the message that it's time to bring empathy and understanding into the fold. Let's not focus strictly on the bottom line and technology and all. Let's also take a look at our people, but not just as a mass of individuals, but really as individuals one at a time, and get to know them, their motivation, their drive, their interests, and not to overgeneralize, not to stereotype, but to recognize that they do come with various needs. And as employers today, we need to recognize them. I know Stephen Howard does not like using the word resources as people, and I totally agree. These are individuals with needs and values and hopes and wishes and dreams. Let's understand them, let's work with them, let's build with them, focus on their training, their growth, their development, and that will contribute to engagement, to collaboration, and to success of the company. So it's this far more people-oriented approach that I sense from certainly everyone in what I would call our team today, and with the people that Ed have brought on and spoken before. I think it's a key to success and to happiness. And those aren't bad outcomes.
Stephen?
Oh, I totally agree with Ken. I'd like to point something out that I find very interesting looking at my screen. All the baby boomers and Gen X's are on their computers, and our one Gen Zer is on her phone. That to me sums
Very
up
good observation.
Yeah.
difference,
Yeah.
intergenerational differences that we have. So just had to point that out. Ask me a specific question, Ed, because I kind of lost the track of where you were going with this.
I'm not sure where it's going, so that's why I keep asking for people to talk. So Natalie, is that an iPhone?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, I have a Samsung, but
I will say
Android.
I will say that I'm not using my phone because it's necessarily more comfortable. It's more so just that I couldn't get the computer to connect to the Wi-Fi.
Now you
So
blew my analogy.
Okay, so our first time guest ever is Denise, and welcome. So this is typically what goes on here in this program. The cast of characters changes. Yes. Well, what do you have to say about all this?
Well, there's a lot I have to say. I mean, first of all, because I have two Gen Zers, I also teach a class at UCLA. It's an entrepreneurial class called Creating Life After College on Your Terms. So I also am with a lot of Gen Zers, and a lot of millennials come into that class who have been in the world for a while and are deeply dissatisfied and trying to figure out what they want to do next. And so what I see is that, and I think this is in general, people are really trying to understand themselves at a deeper level. So they're super smart, intellectually super, super smart. However, to speak about yourself in the world, to present who you are, to be clear about what you want to say and how you want to say it, that's authentic and real and not canned and some like boring, interview. It's hard to have the tools to do that. So I think that like empathy and leadership are really great terms and we all want them. But I think it's always the challenge of how do you do that for yourself? And that's why I put it on your terms when I teach that and do that. And this is in the workplace in many companies that I work with as well. Like, I mean, this is a short version of like at Snapchat, God bless them, and they don't mind if I say this, they'll hire someone who's, Gen Z or even millennial. And then they're like, okay, there's no onboarding. There's your desk. Hope you make it. And then, by the way, you're going to manage 3 people. And I know you don't know how to do that, but do your best. And that is truly what's going on. And so time is of the essence. But I think that it seems counterintuitive to slow down, right? And actually take the time to teach these tools. What is empathy for you? How do you navigate your relationships at any level in the organization? How do you navigate where you want to go? How do you speak about that? How do you navigate friction? So these are all the things that we do in our company, but I do see that it's a challenge for a lot of people to figure out the how for themselves. So that's some of what I've noticed. I could go on and on. The last thing I would say about the Gen Zers, because I'm Gen X as well, but like I don't relate to that. I really relate to people, not the generations. Is that 78% of Gen Zers see that entrepreneurial path, an entrepreneurial path doing their own thing, is actually the most viable career path. So then how do you gain those entrepreneurial skills? Not just skills like actually what you do, but how you're being with people and how do you make relationships and what does that look like in business? And actually, how do you build a business through those relationships? So there's so much more I could say about that, but that is what I'm seeing and noticing. And I don't see that they're in general entitled, or I just don't see that. I see a lot of curiosity. I see a lot of brightness. I see a lot of willingness to learn. and trying to figure out how do you get what you need, and sometimes not even knowing what you need.
Great stuff. Thank you. Gosia, so tell us about your background a little bit, but also I want to plant a question here for you and the panel. Are you seeing in your company, are you seeing international remote assignments?
No. So my background, I'm also Gen X, and I hope you can hear me well. I
Yes.
had internet problems today, so I might be sketchy. So Gen X, and answering your question, Ed, we don't have a lot of remote or like that I'm aware of because of the compliance still. I think like, the generational maybe changes or needs. And I don't necessarily agree with the needs, like with the relating to um, generation. So I'm Gen X, but I'm Polish, working and living in the US. My mom and my sister are still in Poland, so I'm very much so relying on that flexibility to take my work remote from time to time to spend time with my mom and my sister. So obviously, younger generation, maybe it's more like sky is the limit. They are, I think, more prone to move to the flexibility. However, I think too, it may change once you maybe have a family or, maybe a job that kind of put your roots in one place. But we don't because again, like some of the countries' legislation are still not up to speed, I would think, from like the tax or immigration perspective. Or benefits even too, yes.
That's really interesting. Natalie, tell us what's going on with you. Tell the audience that I'm going to announce it. This is just a wonderful story. She's going to start at Berkeley in just a few weeks. That must be super exciting for you, motivating.
Yes, definitely. Um, I have spent the past 2 years at a local community college. And so I'm very excited for this quite big change and new step towards completing my bachelor's and getting through my education. Um, yeah, I'm very excited for it. And I do just want to kind of give a bit of an anecdote regarding Gen Z in the workplace. So I do a lot of local volunteering. Specifically, I do some volunteering at my local city hall. I'm on the historical committee, and they appointed me to be their secretary. And so every time I go to these city hall meetings, everyone there who is baby boomers, they all have their pen and paper and their notepad, and then I bring my computer. And so the people who have been secretary in the past or are secretary for other organizations I'm in, they normally write everything down in their notepad, go home, type it all up on the computer, and within a week to 2 weeks, they send out the meeting minutes for everyone to review. For me, what I do is I type everything directly into my computer, and then the second the meeting's over, I just press send. So the meeting minutes are instant. And every month when I go to this meeting, they're always so impressed and amazed that I could get out the meeting minutes that fast. Um, and so I think that shows definitely well with Gen X currently in the workforce. I think Gen X is already pretty proficient with computers and everything. This isn't, I'm sure they could do what I do. It's not that special. But I think maybe with Gen Z being so grown up on technology and used to using technology, we might see that in the workplace, Gen Z might be able to find ways to use technology to their advantage and hopefully get things done in a more efficient fashion.
Fascinating. That is so cool. And thank you for being so clear with that analysis. And the scope, well, that's because you're going to Berkeley. That's what they saw in you too, probably, that you have this mental grasp of stuff and how to get things
Thank you.
done. And that's a sign of maturity for sure. And trust building. So Christian, you must have had a lot to do with this.
Somewhat. Yeah, I'm too busy being proud right now, but I pulled up my notepad and pen because
It started
yeah.
with that 6-week bonding. You did a great job there from the
Yeah.
start.
Thank you. It's interesting that in my workplace, where a lot of people are really young, they're not that much older than Natalie at In-N-Out Burger, that we see both. We see people like me who are still used to using notepads because that's how I took notes in high school and college and never kind of got over it. I can't type that quickly. And while something is going on, I can't multitask like that. But my boss, who's a little bit older than I am, has no problem doing it. And other people who are kind of sort of my generation have no problem doing it. And then others take notepads. And some of the younger people take notepads as well. So it's kind of it seems like we're at this cusp of a way of taking notes that may be, with paper, or it may be just with a computer. And now, of course, as we all know, we have Otters and other AI tools. So no reason to type anymore, right? Leave that to AI, and you can use your notepad and just skip the computer altogether.
So that's what Jamie Dimon was referring to when half of the jobs, the entry-level jobs, are going to disappear because of AI.
I not necessarily specifically that, but he did mean how I understand him to mean a lot of like note taking, like administrative stuff that if you figure out the AI processes correctly, you can maybe replace, but definitely you can replace part of that. I think it's not a black or white thing anyway. I think it's, if somebody works 40 hours a week and you can take 15 and replace that with AI, how do you fill the other 15? That's more going to be the problem.
So Ken, you've written the book. I'm looking for it. Here we go. Oh, you can't see it on the camera. I'm sorry. I'm holding up the front cover of Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies. So are you going to be able to write another edition with half the jobs disappearing? Startup jobs, entry-level jobs?
Yeah, I wrote the first edition 15 years ago. A lot has happened in the last 15 years. This one just came out in December. 15 years from now, I imagine I'll just think about it and the book will just appear. I won't have to do any writing whatsoever. It's a giant we'll see, because a lot of what's out there we can gather off of and through AI. At the same time, we have to be careful, because there are some biases if we go out and use some of these features. For example, if I say, give me a job description for a receptionist, the odds are it's going to come back and tell us what she does. And it's built into it. It has not cleaned that out of AI. There's also something called hallucinations, that you'll get bogus court cases, bogus judges, bogus rulings. If you're looking in the area of the law, you just have to be very careful with it. So the human element is still very strong. Years from now, and whatever would be a next edition, I would say that's all going to be taken care of. I think we will see major changes in jobs, but literally just reading this morning how this doesn't mean that AI is evil and taken away. It means we are going to have time to do other things with our brains. It doesn't mean, oh, the AI is going to go take over this, so I can just go and sit and chew gum. Hopefully it's going to give us time to be further self-enriched and grow and learn if it's really used properly.
This is Gary Sanger. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Gary?
I am not fresh from the golf course, so I can't talk about anything like that. Nice to join you guys. And for a birthday boy, you look darn good there, sir. You look fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. Meeting you and all of you over the past couple of years doing this, that's actually 5 years now, boy. March of 2020 when I launched this TV show. because of COVID crashing into my meetings and events business of 30 years. And I said, now what am I going to do? So, Gary, you must be really super busy at the executive level of search right now.
Well, I am busy. I wouldn't put super busy on that. I think, and for those of you, I'm a retained headhunter. I've been doing this for 25 years, and we do client-related searches for their C-suite and middle management folks. But you know, I figured out that there's one R in tariff. That's about how much I knew about it here up till a few years, a few months ago.
And 2 Fs.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And
that's an F-bomb.
that is an F-bomb. And the unknown, the uncertainty. I mean, I could be super busy just on stuff that's on pause now with companies trying to figure out the tariff situation. We are busy. We're starting a COO search today for a portfolio company with an office out of Miami. And
CLO means Chief Legal Officer?
COO, sorry, Chief Operating Officer.
Okay,
I think I blurred that a little bit. And so we're just filling one. We're just starting one. But in the search business, I mean, really at the heart of what's going on with a company, do you have the right guys and gals on the bus? Do you have them in the right seats? And when you get this pause, this uncertainty with tariffs, we've got one client, for example, that literally they were about ready to double their $1 billion in size with an acquisition from Europe. And now with the tariff issue, that company in Europe may be down to just about a zero in terms of net value. So obviously that deal's dead. So when you also have folks that are having half of their business coming in from China or, some places in the Middle East or Asia, and you have the uncertainty of it. But I mean, I just got off of another call where the trend is positive. The market is acting pretty well. You do have growth in the country as well as in the world. You do have unrest with a couple of wars, but let's just take one company at a time. I think all those general facts are just general, but specifically XYZ company that's out there trying to grow their business. This particular company is that we're starting the COO search on today is about a $350–400 million business. And it's part of a portfolio of 10 companies or so. And we have been dealing with the COO there who's going to retire, and the CEO who's a woman and a person of color and a background from Nike. So this lady comes from great stock, the idea of going out and finding the best in terms of being able to fill that job. I'm going on too long, but it's exciting as to what we have with the business opportunity now. Ed, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So everybody use the chat and introduce yourselves to everybody else just to be sure. Make a connection count. Stephen, what are you working on these days that you can talk about publicly?
Publicly, working on a project with an Indian company. Can't say much about it, but it's similar to what Gary was talking about, getting the right people. I think they've got the right people. I don't think they're in the right seats on the bus necessarily. So we're talking about moving a couple things around, and also we're going to change their entire approach to how they sell their services. So they're going to go from kind of selling low-end, run-of-the-mill type product service, so to speak, and we're going to move them into a high-end consultancy, big ticket item, which obviously requires them to totally change the way they sell, but more importantly, the way they lead their sales force. So I can't go any more detail than that, but it's a quite exciting little project going on.
Wow, that is amazing. That, if it goes great for you, I'm sure it's going to be the next book.
I don't know about that, but I tell you what is something that, I'm trying to get people in the United States to understand that because this company, if they do it right, they are going to be a major competitor to some key U.S. companies. And the U.S. companies just kind of look at them, oh, they're from India, downplay it, what do they know? But what people don't understand that the middle market in India is roughly 400 to 450 million people. That is more the entire population of the United States, not just the adult population, but the entire population of the United States. India's middle class and upper class is significantly larger, which makes India a huge market. It's not some piddling third world backwater anymore, and people just don't do that. If I can do one more thing, I'll share because this is more in line with the topic of today. I'm coaching two people in the same organization. One is Gen X, and that person is really frustrated that they're not getting a title increase. They're giving more responsibilities, but they're really looking for a title, particularly one that has a C in front of it. And they've been downplaying that, giving this individual more responsibility. And in the same company, I'm coaching a lady who's probably hierarchically one tier below, so to speak, different department, different part of the organization. And I'm coaching her right now she is going through a major work-life balance issue. She wants to restructure her department so she can take on more strategic aspects and not work 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., which is what she's currently doing. And she wants to promote one of her people into her role. And she doesn't care about the title. And she's not doing this to get a salary increase, although I've been talking to her that it probably would be deserving of a bump in salary, but that's not her key motivating factor. So, and she's Gen Z. So we've got same company, two different generations, two different desires for how to succeed career-wise in that same company. And they both have over 14 years experience in that company. So interesting dynamic. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Denise and then Natalie. So Denise, what do you think about all this?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to think about. I was just thinking about those two people and also Gosha, what you were saying. It's not about, when I say it's not about the generation, meaning what I'm trying to say is it's really about tuning into where someone's at. Because even a Gen Zer could be dealing with an elderly parent. We don't know what people are dealing with and what their motivations are. And so it's, I think that a lot of times we do the 360s or the Hogan report or the variety of things, but we don't get truly in tune with what people's strengths are, what their desires are, and what they really need. And then also, what are they going for within that company? So I think Gary, when I was listening to you, it's Gary, no, not Gary, Stephen. I'm like getting confused now. It's like, that you were talking about the person who needs the title, like there's a reason they need that title. Like, what is it that they're actually looking for? It's not the title, it's what it represents or what they need it for. So anyway, that is all very, we run into that a lot. I do a lot of aligning of teams where there's a lot of friction within the team and everyone is coming from a different vantage point and everyone's coming from different expectations and different accountabilities. So what I find very interesting when in the work that I do is when we clean out the dysfunction and the lack of communication and people start aligning and really understanding each other, there's a lot more satisfaction because they understand who's in the room, what the strengths are, and how they're going to actually use each other in really collaborative ways. And so that's what I mean about kind of stripping through the generations, right? Because if we get caught in the perceptions or our opinions, we're very opinionated these days. If we get caught in our opinions of people, we normally talk to them through those opinions, right? And so that's what I was trying to say about that. I want to strip away the generation. That doesn't mean we don't appreciate what they are dealing with, but it's also really understanding where that person's at, what they're dealing with, what they're best at, and how do we actually use that in the best way. The other thing I was going to say is I think I mentioned that we're building a leadership development AI coaching platform. And a lot of that includes leadership tools that can be sold into companies around the world that leaders can use at any level. And the idea is to take those tools and integrate them for yourself. And so it is a technology, right? But I do think that, like, no matter what the generation, technology can be extremely useful, and we need to get good at it. Right? Even like getting good at using AI, even how you prompt the AI causes you to have to get clear about how you're communicating with the AI. So not only do we have to get really good at communicating with each other in business so that things are fluid and there's not a lot of waste of time and money and energy, but you have to communicate with the AI really well so it gives you what you need. So it's kind of funny how it translates into that as well. So those are some of the things I'm seeing and hearing out of this conversation.
Thank you. Gen Z, Natalie?
Well, I think there's a lot of discussion within Gen Z about AI and how people feel about it. And so this past year, I have worked through my community college as an English tutor, working directly with students in specific English classes and helping them write their essays. And something that one of the professors and I noticed is that students do tend to use ChatGPT occasionally when they're stuck on what to write. Um, and it's quite evident when they use it because if you ask ChatGPT to write an essay, you give them like an essay prompt and you say, okay, write something about one of the essay prompts the students have had was what is a one on the world happiness scale, what's a country that is rated very happy and why? So when ChatGPT generates that essay, it's facts. It's like this happens in this country, and then this happens in this country, and that leads to happiness, and then this happens, and this happens, and that leads to happiness. But there's no story. There's no discussion of like why that's important. There's no discussion of how this can make an impact on communities, right? It's facts, listing facts. And so when you have a student paper, the student discusses how this is important and this is good for the community. And there's a story there. You can hear a personal voice. And ChatGPT takes out that voice. And so I think when we discuss how AI can be used to take over jobs, I'm sure it does have a use, right? It can do these very, manual tasks where there's not a lot of emotion needed. But for jobs where you need a human, you need a human touch, you need someone to tell a story, to discuss why something is important or why something isn't important, to figure out how the best solution to problems. I mean, you could have a very fact-oriented AI answer, but I think what is really important is, AI is this really hot new topic, right? Everyone wants to use it, to play around with it. I had teachers in high school who wanted to use it to make lesson plans. It's something new and it's something fun. But before rushing into it and, let's have this take over all of our note-taking jobs. Okay, but we need to also be aware that in using AI and in using robots, we are losing the human touch, the human element in those notes. And so maybe, yes, all the facts are written down, but what about the value of those facts? How important are things? And we need to make sure that we don't lose that because we're so excited and distracted by how new and amazing AI is.
So I have to jump in here and say that was brilliant, Natalie.
Thank
And
you.
I'm super impressed. And Dr. Ken Lloyd, this is the makings of a PhD dissertation. I could see it
talking to a
happening.
future PhD student. Natalie is to a doctorate. We already know that. And, yeah, no, very, very good point.
Yeah. So, I get the Otter notes and something else. I don't even know what it says read. Oh no, that's the note taker thing. Anyway, I'm getting confused. But I'm finding that when Otter reviews just a typical talk show that I produce, that they're doing exactly what Natalie just said. There's absolutely no emotion. It's just this this was done, and then that was said, and then somebody said something about that. And so what I've done is to edit and string it together and put it into on YouTube in the description box. And it's really time consuming for me and brain taxing. But this is how I'm as a boomer. This is how I'm learning about what to do with AI in that regard, because it's making the show more dynamic, the talk show, not just the video play. And now I'm getting into the audio. And now with the text. So this is how I'm using the AI thing, is to turn that AI generated ... into a story of the talk show.
Well, to Natalie's point, when managers use AI to write their appraisals of their employees, it's a huge problem for both of the points that Natalie mentioned. Number one, the writing is missing the emotional, the human touch. It's stiff, it's mechanical, it does not look right. And more importantly, when the employee receives it, the employee knows, gosh, I thought I was going to get some feedback from my manager and not some automated data about me. So employees don't like receiving it. They can tell. And the way it's written does not capture the real essence of what should be communicated to the employee in order to help that person further grow and develop. AI can be very helpful in giving them that manager, hey, here's some things to think about, craft this, put it in your own words, tailor it to the employee. It can be a great coach for the manager writing that appraisal. But certainly just to take it and plug it in is going to create nothing but difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I totally agree. I mean, I have people in companies that are writing multiple reviews and are overwhelmed. The time consuming, project of doing those kind of reviews is intense. But what I see is that ongoingly developing your people and giving them real-time feedback that's a contribution as opposed to a criticism is really the key. So you're not stuck with trying to shove everything into the review at the end. And then they're like, okay, well, wait a minute, what do I do with this information? And kind of sometimes can be even a surprise as opposed to the ongoing development, along the way. So it's just something I noticed about how dense it can be in those reviews, also when they're writing them through AI, but also like what they've been avoiding or not dealing with, or, not ongoingly supporting those people in real time. Either they're uncomfortable to do it, or they don't, take the time to do the one-on-one, which again seems counterintuitive, but they should. So it's interesting. I've run into the denseness of that and the inhumanity of it, I guess I would call it.
Denise, that's one of the main changes in performance appraisals today. It's the concept of using what's called continuous feedback, which is meeting every week or two with the employees to not only to give them feedback, but buzzword, to give them feed forward, help them coaching and talking to them about what's going on, how are things going, even to get into issues of mental health, which is very important to the millennials. But in terms of dealing with stress, how's it going? So that when that evaluation comes, whether it's annually, semi-annually, or even quarterly, there are no surprises.
Right.
And it's actually can be used as a developmental tool, far more forward focused than the once a year drop the bomb and nobody even remembers what happened when employees don't like receiving it and managers don't like giving it. That's all gone. So you're absolutely right.
Yes, Christian.
So one of the underlying threads here is critical thinking. And to me, the whole AI discussion is, while it's very important and it's interesting and we all have to deal with it, what's really not being talked about as much as critical thinking. And that's exactly when Natalie says it's all these facts are not being prioritized. That would be an example of that. That nobody develops the ability to look at an AI-generated answer and read it for what it is and change what needs to be changed. I worked with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, professionally for 7 months last year. My job there as a contractor was a tester for questions from the field of linguistics, English literature. I wrote a lot about song texts, poems, and I saw that with AI, sometimes you could even figure out which Wikipedia article the answer came from. So the underlying sources were dubious at best, or there weren't enough of them. And what I'm really worried about is if you don't have the ability to look at the answer and look at the Wikipedia article and compare the two and see where the information came from, that's when we're going to be in deep trouble, because AI is self-replicating. If you put an AI-generated answer out there, AI will pick it up eventually. So you get a game of telephone. And people are going to put this, as Natalie says, in their academic work. They're going to put it in news articles that they put out. They're going to put it in, maybe they're making life or death decisions based on this kind of stuff. And that's what I'm really concerned about.
Annette.
For me, AI really is an opportunity to go back to our core human beings. Because in my opinion, very often in companies, we could hide behind regulations and numbers and so on. And now that we have something that can do the, maybe I can call it the stupid work, we have to relate much more to our core, to what is really important to us. And I think if we react in a good way, then we will find our core values, and then we will talk to each other on a completely other level. And so it relates so much to what you also said. I think it was you, Denise, to really come to another way of understanding, especially in teams, and to really get into touch with each other, and to be more open, and talk on another level. And what is really important is also this personal expertise and the personal story. Every speaker knows how important storytelling is to really capture the attention of the audience. And I think that this will increase. And for me, therefore, AI is kind of a chance to really change our attitude towards each other, and also as in regard to our work and the way how we perform.
Gary.
I'm struck with the idea that regardless of how well we might write or how well we might put an article, my story is simply this: what if you're working on the wrong stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in a company and they're busy as heck. They're working all the kinds of stuff, but they're working the wrong stuff. I mean, I have a client now, which has been a sandbox for me that's way above my pay grade, but nevertheless, as an advisor and then doing the search for their new COO. Here's a company that, as an example, here's a company that's in the minerals business. They, in a stealth way, have put together claims for roughly $1.5 billion to $2 billion worth of minerals in the ground. And the valuation of those assets is pretty much verified. But the founder of this, for 12 years now, has raised nearly $20 million. And yet we don't have mining operations to get the stuff out of the ground. And so working the right issue, I mean, damn, we've got piddly little sales stuff going on in 2 or 3 of the markets. We've got some demand in the measure of a few $100,000. But if we're trying to get back to the core, where today is day 13 of the new COO, and the focus is totally on that $20 million to $200 million capital raise, that's 50% of the focus that we have on these weekly staff meetings. It wasn't that way before. And so we can say all this stuff. Denise, your idea that when you said, you know, you got the guy with the title issue and you've got the guy with the money issue or the work balance issue. If you don't, what's really the issue with that title issue?
Right.
You know, do they need it on a resume so they can go out and get a better job? Do they need it to go get competed for from another company? But I'm just thinking out loud. The most successful executives that I get the opportunity to work with are those that can sit in a room, and they don't sit very long, right? As they assimilate a whole lot of complex data, and he or she then stands up and said, look, here's the opportunity, here's the risk, here's the two things that we're going to work on. Let's focus on that. So again, working the right stuff. I'm a farm boy from Idaho, so I try to get very simple so I can understand it. But the focus on raising that $100–200 million so we get some of those minerals out of the ground and we start to make those business plans real by executing them versus 70 other nice feel-good things. I mean, it really gets me fired up.
Sorry, everybody, I have to go. I have another call, but this was a great show. Thank you so much,
See you,
everyone.
Kristen.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Okay, Gosha, so what's happening?
Not much, you know.
Yeah, no,
other than that.
is mobility action decreasing, or is it normal summertime?
So I need to say that I'm actually surprised with all that what's going on, you know, in the globally economy. For most, like, our volume remains steady with a slight increase because, like, exactly how you say, like, depending on the markets and what's your the company's agenda and strategy will be. Yes, this is like certain regions are now becoming more popular and hot than others. But I need to say overall, kind of combination. Volumes remain steady, but you also too pay attention to the cost. But I don't think that's anything new in the global mobility world. But I want to just add, if I may, still with the AI. So I love it,
Yes.
and I do agree with like the critical thinking. I do use AI a lot just for the framework of communication because, again, being Polish and looking at more direct maybe style of communicating, I always want to make sure that in the past you kind of that the advice was just email yourself first and read how that message would be received. So now from my perspective, the communication is much faster. I can just like ask from whatever X, Y, Y, maybe be more formal, less direct, however it may be. So that's helping me. And then obviously, putting the personal spin or touch on that communication and just knowing your audience. It's not only about me, how I'm communicating, but also whom I'm communicating to. And just interesting take on the notes versus I guess typing. So I'm still again too Gen X in me. I do put the notes because too, like I read, so like from the meetings using AI, it's nice, or like the notes, text to notes. So just give you that again high level framework for this, saving the time. It should be factual. I don't think like the meeting should be emotional. So that kind of helps with the AI. But on the notes too, they're saying to how our brain is processing information, actually not only processing, but retaining. And so it is, find and I confirm that actually the handwritten notes are helping you to retain the knowledge or, help you to keep that information much faster than the typing. So this is what I always encourage my kids, one being Gen Z, one being younger, so I'm not sure what's after, Gen Z. But this is what I find, like the way thank you. I used to study, I always did my notes. Like this is how I rewrite my notes from the lectures into like the nice, final whatever notes. And this is what kind of helped me to, I guess, study. Yes, I spend more time to take these notes, but then I think that the, time to actually study and retain that knowledge was faster. And this is what I find amazing too, that brain needs to kind of adapt to this new technology of typing, but I think it's just, helpful when you actually have that motor skill into your, how you process that information. So yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Gosia. I want to ask you, if I may, a
Mhm.
specific mobility
Sure.
thing. So, do you agree that assignees, in other words, people who are going on an assignment, it could be domestic, could be international.
Yeah.
What do you think of providing a coach to the assignee and family, regular communication, feedback about what's going on and family adapting? Are you integrating into that local community? And I say that because
Mhm.
we're trying to get to ROI, measuring ROI
Mhm.
of an international assignment in particular. And half of them, this is not scientific, but
Yeah.
a lot of them fall apart, disintegrate,
Yeah.
come back early, assignment failure, waste of money, talent
so
leaves.
Mhm. So what would that, I guess, Ed, I would need to,
Coach,
what
yeah.
that role, the coach role would be, because for
Yeah, well,
like,
it's
what
sort
if
of
you just
like
check in?
a psychological safety as well as work performance rolled into one.
Yeah, so would be good solution always, like if you're really like just focusing on this one aspect, making sure they how like checkpoints of like how they doing, yes, adjusting, meaning how is assignee doing, as well as the broader concept of like family dependence, significant
Right.
others. On the flip side though, I would see the feedback that I'm getting. So like, I'm with my son, even if it's like outsourced model, meaning that a lot of functions like communication and guidance through like the logistics is being outsourced to our relocation management company. I'm still in touch with the company. I'm introducing myself at the beginning of the assignment and then just checking in. And with some, you're developing friendship or closer relationship. With some, it's just, maybe more formal, but kind of you checking in just to see if they're comfortable. My hesitation having another contact, and whether that's going to be coach or so, is from that expats very often complaining how many people they have, like they having so many checkpoints, yes, like people to handle logistics, people who are consulting on the policies, people who are guiding them through the immigration process, people who are guiding them through the taxes. So we now introducing another touch point. So like from the sense and then design would be good, just really, focusing on that emotional well-being of assignee. It's just that's another touch point, yes, with like sometimes it's being overwhelming. But I think, the trend with focusing more on that emotional well-being, expats as well, it's gaining some traction or like popularity. Where we're going with it, I'm not sure. But I know it's really helpful from overall perspective. It's just like focusing not only on the transactions and tasks, but also on that, I would say, more emotional, psychological safety and the needs of that expat or assignee.
Thank you very much for that deep dive and for handling this impromptu, unknown question that comes parachuted right into this conversation by me. But a lot of our audience is involved with talent mobility management, and that's why I want to keep that thought going. But more about that in another show focused on the process and the changes going on within the mobility industry. And how companies are spending money or not spending money on assignment management.
Yeah.
And then versus the risk of having the assignment fail. Particularly on an international basis where, and I'm sure you can relate to this, coming into a new environment, new culture on the assignment, it's very hard to make friends. And so mental health issues are created because people are uncomfortable and the cause for friction in the family. and lack of being comfortable. And that
Yeah.
goes to performance. Ken, would you agree?
No, I do definitely. It's like yes, relocation is a huge adjustment, especially if you're going to go to a different country where maybe your language proficiency, yes, it's not as great. And then you have a great point too. If you're moving with the family, it's not only about you adjusting as an employee and individual to the new circumstances, but it's also kind of making sure that the family will be well adjusted as well. Many times you hear like, if employees moving over, they're kind of focusing on the job with the company they know. They, whether that's going to be a, different office, if they move with the current company, but it's just the culture they know, at least the company they know, expectations they kind of know. It's the family that is exactly main focus and kind of left behind. So the network of people is definitely needed. So like the buddy system, not necessarily like coach would be awesome in this situation too, but I know like a lot of assignees and then programs too, you kind of focusing on making sure that you have some welcoming committee, but like somebody who is going to stay and remain with you. Yes, like many years ago, when I first moved to the US, I moved here with an au pair program. So that's the network people, yes. And this is like the part of the process was that somebody who was already in the process in the area would welcome you and kind of bring you to the team, to the group. And you're not always, remain in the team, but like initially within the week, that was the expectation of like whoever, au pair who was already established within the program would make the call, introduction, and then just do the face-to-face with that new person. So I know like a lot of my expats too, when they move into the area, they already know somebody else who kind of moved before them, or if not, whether that's from the same company, other companies. So I think the networking, building your human, networking locally is very important too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, Annette.
Oh, I only want to say I have to leave. I could add a lot to what you've just been talking about, because to just add one short sentence, that is what it really is about, to care about the humans and
Mhm.
not to just have the administration around humans, what it was, in my opinion, so many years ago, and to really know who needs what, and because if they don't stay healthy, so how can they perform their work? And yeah, so I thank you really very much for this wonderful conversation, and I really hope that we all will take care more of each other and our needs, and the way how we communicate and interact with each other. So thank you all very much. And
Peace and love. Peace and love.
yes, exactly. And I'm already very much looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie,
Bye.
Natalie, what do you think of this conversation? Is it worthwhile for you to spend all this time here?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely. Something I did maybe want to mention is that I think with in terms of global mobility and people talking from around the world and having kind of like a digital office space, I think Gen Z might arguably might have a leg up in that, since so many Gen Zers have grown up, on the phone, having, their TikTok feed is from around the world, and having online friends, for example, is something that I see in a lot of my peers. Some of their best friends are across the world, right? I think that since Gen Z already has some experience fostering some really strong connections online, I think in a global mobility space that might be easier for them. They might be a little bit more familiar with the concept than, let's say, someone who is a baby boomer or even Gen X. And I think that definitely can be used to a company's advantage if they know that Gen Z already is proficient in having those types of relationships.
So I'm going to call this the talk show, the TOK talk show, not TALK, because I'm going to appeal more to Gen Z and Gen Alpha. That's next, isn't it? Gen Alpha?
Yes, Gen Alpha is
Yeah,
next.
I know.
And
But
so
they're
those
still
kids
pretty young.
are 10 years old, right?
We need to get you on TikTok. You can do little like bites of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You know, I tried to join that, and I think they knew I was a boomer, and they just didn't let me in.
Uh-oh. Discrimination.
You have to
Yeah.
do a viral TikTok dance and then they'll be interested.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Oh, do you want to show us what that means?
I no no thank you.
That's great. So, so Gary, are you dealing with Gen Z yet in your searches?
No. However, my clients, if they're out there in the B2C world or B2B world, and that's their customer, if that's who they're trying to appeal to, that's how they're trying to figure it out. But, you know, for us to relate, I don't know, it's hard to relate to being 20 because that was 100 years ago. But nevertheless, I mean, I grew up in very humble background, farm kid from Idaho, you know, father, mother who were wonderful, and they had 2 slave boys, and they worked us really hard, and we played really hard and had a great life. And so I can sense back because my parents were pretty stupid until I was about 30. Now think about that. I think about who they then influenced to try to keep me on the path. Where I get my biggest kick out of is my friends' kids, or my friends' kids' kids, and trying to be sharing of what some of the career scars I have, or try to share, you know, as you look at which industries might get legs on them and would have a great future. Where I get a great kick is, you know, what influence I can perhaps help with a picture of where the careers, where the industries have changed over the years. We traveled quite a bit, so the world and the US were always pretty small to me, you know, and so that piece of it. But Natalie, you think about 10 years from now, what is, I mean, in this previous group that I was in right before here, the comment was made, hey, if you're fighting technology, it's a losing battle. So if we're thinking about where AI is going to go in which industries and how can it help you, you know, it's a big deal. But yet I still go back to the big but, and that is, are you working the right issue? Are you getting the right preparation? Because my goal is, Natalie, in 2 words, what's your goal now career-wise? What do you want to be, do you think, right now, if you're just picking right now?
A anthropology professor.
So that's very narrowly defined, and it's very specific, and it's a lofty goal. And so by folks that are in that field or related fields, what should be your curriculum? What should be your school? What should be your internships? What countries might you go to and do a semester abroad? That's where I would think out loud with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm listening to you and trying to provide some advice. Or I might say, look, if money's really important, let's be reality oriented, and what does it pay? What's the future? You know what I'm saying? That's the practical side of what this. So I still go back, Denise, title, work-life balance. If I don't fix that title thing, the rest of the stuff probably doesn't get done very well. If I don't fix the work-life balance and go get you a number 2 and, you know, take 14 hours down to 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day, that's where my thought process goes to.
Stephen?
And that goes back to the point about meeting the person where they are. And that's what I've been doing with both of those individuals. And
Yeah.
I can understand why the title is important to one person who's already got the salary, but that's what motivates him. And I totally understand the work-life balance issue with the lady and how she's trying to explore that and prepare her to communicate that to her more senior bosses, because if she's not able to communicate that to them, she'll get frustrated and she may leave. And we don't want her leaving that organization. So I'm really working with her, not so much on her choices as how she's going to communicate her choices, and asking her the variety of questions similar to what Gary's talking about, but obviously she's already in the workforce, but different set of questions, the same kind of 5-year focus, 10-year focus. Where does she want to be? What drives her? What part of the business excites her? And what part of the business doesn't she want to be involved with anymore? And and what words not to use when she talks to, for instance, she expressed her frustration to me in that, I'm so tired of dealing with people. I want to get out of the day-to-day. And I said, well, don't tell your boss that, because you're never going to get away from people. So that's a phrase to practice never to use. You can use it with me as your coach, but don't use it in your conversation with your management.
That's great. Ken, take us up.
A very interesting article about an individual, 30 years old, female, named Lucy Guo, Guo. She's a co-founder of, I think it's called Scale AI. And she's a billionaire and self-made. And she said of her generation and people at work, those who are really seeking a work-life balance probably are not in the right line of work. She works from 5:30 in the morning till midnight, and that's her passion. And it was just an interesting look, because we keep seeing work-life balance is, in quotes, the holy grail for the younger generation, for the millennials, of course. And yet here's one who's been very successful. I think the message among many others is that let's make sure that we understand the members of our team as individuals. And let's look at that match between them and the job. And, Stephen talked about putting people in the right chairs and right slots on the bus. And that's really important, so that they are in jobs where they're not constantly thinking about, I want to get out of here, I want to go home, I want to go do this and go do that. If that's what it is, that's fine. But that's not the whole generation. And we can end up with some pretty serious stereotypes and false expectations that'll end up creating difficulties for the employees as well as for the organization. So it's to really dig a little deeper. We know that expectations really affect performance. If I expect an employee to do well, the odds are that that employee has a much greater likelihood of doing well. At the same time, if I expect an employee to fail, my behaviors, comments, actions are going to influence that individual's behavior and more likely contribute to failure on the job. So we have to look at what we're expecting of those around us, regardless of their generation. And take a look at Lucy here, who, 5:30 in the morning till midnight. You're not, you're seeking work-life balance. Maybe you're not in the right line of work. I just thought that was just an interesting counterbalance to make sure we understand that as well.
The critical thing is, Ken, also, is it's a two-way street. It's not just the baby boomers understanding the Gen Z, but it's vice versa. And being adaptable to each other. I work with somebody who's in Gen Z, and they want to send me documents by text, attach a document by text. And I said, look, I'm not going to read a document on my phone. I'm sorry, it's just too small. I can't do it. It gives me a headache. So we worked out a methodology where they'll send it to me on WhatsApp, simply because I have WhatsApp on my computer. And it saves me the time of having to cheat. If that person sends it to me by text, I've got to figure out how to email it to myself and then look at it on my computer. So that flexibility, that person understood that, look, I just can't read a PDF document on my phone. I don't want to. It gives me a headache. And so that person was flexible, agile enough to say, okay, I understand that, and let's figure out a methodology of working with each other, and vice versa. I mean, that person doesn't want to get emails from me, so I send them text messages by WhatsApp. That's how we communicate, or voice messages by WhatsApp. They're much more comfortable receiving messages like that, whereas I would prefer to email them, because that gives me a written record of what I said, unlike the voice message. So again, but I'm flexible too. I'll send them those voice messages. So it's a two-way street. I think that's what's really critical about this at the end of the day, and that's how you meet people where they are, and that's how together you move forward.
I agree, and that means real bona fide two-way communication.
Absolutely.
Listening to each other, being respectful, and actually not just thinking about what I'm going to say when this person finishes talking, but take it in, internalize it. And frankly, you did that just in that conversation that you had regarding how you want to receive that attachment. And that's just one small piece of it. But yeah, communication is critical here, or we again just start living off of expectations, biases, stereotypes, and end up going down a ridiculous path that takes no one anywhere.
It
Natalie-
also, oh,
Yes,
sorry.
go.
I was going to say, it also sets the tone for your leadership style. And it doesn't have the other person have to read your mind about what you need or how you compute. So I have CEOs that I work with, and they get so frustrated with their team or their people, and they're like, I don't have time for this. I'm like, well, we need to actually communicate how you think and how you request that they actually give you the information. So, I have one person who is, I think it was Ed, you said, no one has the time, or, no one, it's just too fast. He is so fast and he is so brilliant, but he's also so impatient. And so it scares a lot of people. So we've had to recalibrate and say, listen, I think really fast. It's not personal to you. When you come to me, could you come in bullet points? And then if you have something that is really and crucial for you to talk about, say, I really need to talk about it, so it's more than a bullet point. And then we'll set time to do that. So it was up to the leader to actually communicate how he wanted to be communicated with, and if they actually could do that, and to find that middle ground, like, what you did, which was like beautiful to me. Stephen is like, what's up at work? That is great for them. It's easy, just as quick as, a text, same version, but you can get it in the way that works for you. So I also think there's responsibility for people to, in their communication, to like communicate what they need and also be able to hear what the other person needs and come to that middle ground. And again, it seems counterintuitive to take the time to do that, but gosh, it just saves so much time and money and frankly, energy and relationships. So.
Thank you, Denise. You're a spark, and I welcome you to come back
Thanks.
again and again.
Thank you.
Natalie,
I wanna
thank
ask
you for your
Ed,
time.
just quickly, is this
Yeah.
your actual birthday today?
Oh, no, it was June 16.
Oh, okay.
Stephen was so gracious to write the screenplay and put it all together.
Oh, lovely. Well, happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you. I'm still celebrating.
You should be.
That's great. Natalie, thanks for your time here.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to say one brief thing that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, but I think in the workplace, especially with Gen Z, companies have been putting Gen Zers where they know that they'll do well and like where their strengths are. And so something that I've seen specifically on Instagram, but I think it was on Twitter or X as well, is that companies are hiring Gen Z to do their social media managing. And so sometimes you'll have, a company like, I know Wendy's, for example, did this, where they hire a Gen Zer to do their social media, and the Gen Zer creates like some viral video or viral tweet that becomes really internet famous. And it's always very jarring because Gen Z, we look to see, okay, who posted this, and then it's Wendy's, and we're like, wait, why is Wendy's? Another famous one is Duolingo. They have all these crazy videos on Instagram and TikTok of like the Duolingo owl like dancing in like the middle of Times Square or something. And it's these funny viral videos that companies now have. And so these companies that they're not a random TikToker, they're an actual business, but they now have these like funny viral videos. And so clearly putting Gen Zers in positions where they know that they can do well, it's working for them.
Fantastic. So a bit of news coming up on Global TV Talk Show. There's several new programs, and you'll all be invited to participate. Again, no registration fees. We exist on memberships and sponsor advertisers. But we welcome people to come on and get acquainted with the camera, this little green light, and get comfortable with talking with strangers who now have become our friends. So Denise, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like you guys to communicate using the chat thing down there. If not now, then follow up. On July 1, Mark Colo, some of you know him from being on my show, has been a Parkinson's patient for 20 years, and he's been managing it. And the chore is to learn how to manage the onslaught of generative Parkinson's, because it gets worse. It doesn't get better as time goes by. One of the things that he got me involved with is to help promote the charity that he co-founded called Find Neural Help. He's now moved on from that charity, very successfully raised a whole bunch of money, and I was happy to help PR that by having him on our talk shows for a while. But now he's gotten me further involved with one of his clients, and this is Dr. Paula Grisanti, who's president or CEO of the National Stem Cell Foundation. And through that relationship, Jana Stoudemire, some of you may know her from being on the programs. She was an executive with Axiom Space Corporation. And they are building the new commercial-oriented space station. And part of that space station is going to be a stem cell laboratory in zero gravity. In other words, up 200 or 300 miles. They can do molecular research in zero gravity much better than on Earth, I guess. And so part of that is brain cell stuff to fix Parkinson's and ALS and dementia. Dr. Paula Grisanti and Jana and Mark and me and another doctor who's involved in this kind of thing will be our guests on To Life, which is the name of the healthcare series that I'm producing. And I'll send around the invitation. You don't have time to sit through that kind of a conversation. I'll send you the program when it's finished. It's okay. But I thought I'd make that announcement not only to you, but to the audience out there, because it's like something that's really a good thing for them and for me. One of my brothers has become infected by Parkinson's. So now it's, I don't know what, if anything, is in store for me, but we'll see what happens. So
Ed, this is Gary. I commend you for raising the issue and raising the awareness. One of my longtime really best friends' wife has Parkinson's, and she's had success to basically keep this at the same level for the last 5-8 years through a couple of medical procedures that she's had done. So it's stayed, it's not gotten worse, it's not gotten more degenerative. You know, their daughter's getting married here in a couple of months. And if you could email that information to me, my friend and his wife, they may have something there to share that may be interested for, interesting for some of these other folks that are just now dealing with it, et cetera. But man, I find this fascinating when you go into that.
Yeah, I'm going to have a follow-up talk with Mark later today.
Cool.
Because it's going to be some other medical people on the show, but I don't have their names yet.
Yeah, thank you.
That's hopeful. That's very hopeful.
Yeah, fascinating, really. So, Jana, this is a really cool lady. she's left Axiom, and now she's involved in a stem cell startup with lots of funding.
Hmm.
And so we'll have somebody from that group on the show, but I don't know who yet. Anyway, while Jana got that clothing designer, Prada.
Mm.
You remember the movie The Devil Wears Prada? Okay, so now the space people are going to wear Prada in the new space station. And so
Wow.
she was the one that was coordinating all that with the designers. Yeah, how about that? Fascinating stuff. Innovative. So thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. And I'm going to do a little bit of editing, and you'll get the program link later in my day today.
So when do we get our product clothes for our next show, Ed?
You know, I haven't asked yet.
I'd like some Prada, please.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ed gives us Prod Inc. It's slightly different.
My parents were born and raised in Italy. I will take Prada anytime. Thank you.
That is super cool.
All
Okay,
right, everyone, be well.
thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
Shucks.
Thanks for
Thank
it
you
all.
so much.
Yeah,
No
bye-bye.
problem. Thank you for
Okay.
including me. Mhm.
No, I love doing this. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.